My fiancé falsely accused me to get me arrested. As the officers led me away, she leaned in with a sneer and whispered, "Enjoy jail, loser." What she didn't know was that my one phone call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to my father, the chief of police. I'm a firefighter. My life revolves around charging into danger while others flee. Discipline, trust, and common chaos. Those are the principles I live by. I once believed my relationship with Jessica stood on those same foundations. I was wrong. What we had was kindling soaked in gasoline, and all she needed was a spark. That spark came last night. We got into another fight, one we'd had before. It was always about money. She spent recklessly, treating credit cards like magic spells that summoned expensive bags and five-star pampering. I work hard, own my house, stay on top of bills, and save for the future. She, on the other hand, wanted instant luxury. This time, she wanted me to co-sign a loan for a car she couldn't afford. I refused firmly, calmly, and finally, something shifted in her. Her anger cooled into something far more dangerous, calculating. She shouted, called me controlling and stingy. Then she walked over to the mantel, grabbed a vase, an heirloom from my late grandmother, and hurled it at the wall. It exploded into fragments. That's when she did something that left me speechless. With an unsettling smile, she dragged her nails down her arm, hard enough to draw blood. Then came the performance. Her voice turned quivery and tearful. "Get out of my house," she screamed, as if she were terrified. I stared at her. "Your house," I said softly. "This is my house." She leaned in and hissed, "Not for long." Then she called 911, playing the victim to perfection. I stood motionless, stunned, while she described a scene so twisted and false it felt like something out of a bad movie. She told the dispatcher I had attacked her, thrown the vase, and she feared for her life. By the time officers arrived, she was crying on the porch with her self-inflicted scratch on display. I was calm and quiet. Two men in uniform took one look, and protocol took over. They separated us, took her statement, then approached me with handcuffs. Jessica followed them, and just as I was being led to the car, she leaned in and whispered those words again, victorious and cruel. At the station, I was processed like anyone else. Belt and shoelaces removed. Miranda rights read. A room with concrete walls and the stench of disinfectant and stale fear. I wasn't afraid. I faced burning buildings. But this betrayal? This was different. It was personal. Jessica had turned a system meant to protect the innocent into a weapon of revenge. Then they told me I had the right to one phone call. Jessica's entire plan hinged on one arrogant assumption, that I was alone, that I had no influence, no connections. She had met my father before and assumed he was a low-ranking cop, probably nearing retirement. She had no idea who he truly was. I picked up the phone. I didn't hesitate. I called my father, Robert Williams. "My name is Matt Carter. I took my mother's surname when I was 18 to build my own path, apart from the imposing shadow of the city's top law enforcement officer." The next hour passed like a slow bleed. Time stretched out, each second dripping with disbelief. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, steady, confident. Not the shuffle of a lawyer or an officer on patrol. This was different. The young officer who had arrested me opened my cell door. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. "You're free to go," he said, voice tight and nervous. "Someone's here to see you." I stepped out and followed the corridor to the main floor of the station. There stood my father. Not in uniform, but in a dark suit that somehow made everyone around him stand taller, quieter, more cautious. The room bent around him. Authority radiated from him without a word. He saw me, and for a flicker of a moment his stern features softened. He walked up, laid a firm hand on my shoulder, and asked quietly, "You all right, son?" "I'm fine, Dad," I replied. He turned to the desk sergeant, a man suddenly drenched in sweat. Calmly he spoke. "Sergeant Miller. I was reviewing the report on my son's arrest. Can you tell me where your officers documented the vase's glass pattern? Was it inside the wall's impact radius or outside?" The sergeant blinked, stammered. I'm not sure, sir. I'll need to review the full report." "You do that," my father said evenly, "because if something is thrown, it breaks and the pieces fall behind the point of impact. But if it's slammed against the wall, they scatter outward. That's basic physics. He then turned to the younger officer, Officer Jennings, the same one who had cuffed me. My son has never shown violent tendencies. And his accuser, his fiancée, what's her record? The young man swallowed hard and tried to avoid my father's eyes. My father didn't need to raise his voice. His knowledge, his authority, and his composure said everything. I wasn't just getting released. I was about to watch the truth unravel. Jessica's house of lies had been built on arrogance and assumptions. But the foundation she thought was rock solid was already cracking. And now it was only a matter of time before the entire thing collapsed around her.
The night I was arrested, two versions of the story were presented. Yet the officer decided to make a physical arrest instead of simply separating us. My father, calm but stern, questioned that choice. What specific evidence justified arresting my son? He asked. The officer, now visibly nervous, pointed to a scratch on Jessica's arm, citing protocol. But my father, the police chief, didn't let that slide. Protocol also demands discretion and a proper investigation, he reminded. He asked if the officer had even checked Jessica's fingernails for my skin or blood to verify her claim that I grabbed her. Silence followed. My father wasn't shouting, but the weight of his words was far more powerful. He wasn't trying to override the process. He was ensuring it was done right, with the competence and integrity expected from the badge. Then he turned to me. "Go home, Matt," he said quietly. "I've assigned Detective Harding to the case. He's the best. Don't speak to Jessica. Let the system do what it's meant to do." I walked out of the station, a free man. Rain tapped against my windshield as I sat in my car, phone buzzing in my hand. A text from Jessica lit up the screen. "I see you're out already. Don't think this is over. I'm filing for an emergency restraining order tomorrow. The house is mine." I didn't reply. I didn't even hesitate. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Jessica believed this was just a domestic squabble. She had no idea she had started a war, and I was no longer fighting alone. My father's quiet move had already turned the tide. Over the next few days, everything shifted. I met with my lawyer and laid out the truth. My father's position added weight to our defense. "This changes the whole game," my lawyer said, seeing the opportunity to go on the offensive. "We didn't just challenge her claims. We filed a counterpetition. We accused her of malicious prosecution and abuse of the legal process. In my affidavit, I detailed the night's events, how she had smashed the vase herself and fabricated the story. We requested that the court not only deny her restraining order, but issue one in my favor, one that made me the sole occupant of the house." Meanwhile, Detective Harding got to work. He was legendary for his methodical investigations and his knack for detecting lies. He began with the evidence, just as my father expected. Photos of the crime scene showed most of the shattered vase pieces scattered in a way consistent with it being thrown against the wall, not at a person. Jessica's scratch? It was clean and narrow, exactly what you'd expect from a self-inflicted nail scratch. There were no bruises, no real signs of a struggle. Then came the text. Harding obtained a warrant for her phone records. What he found was damning. In the days leading up to the incident, she texted her best friend. "He won't co-sign the loan. I'm done with him. Don't worry. I have a plan. If he won't give me the life I want, I'll just take it." Her manipulation wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. But the most unexpected piece of evidence came from next door. Mrs. Gable, my elderly neighbor, told Harding she had overheard the argument from her porch. She remembered the glass breaking, followed by Jessica's voice suddenly switching from angry yelling to a strange, performative sobbing. "It didn't sound real," she told the detective. "It sounded like she was practicing." And then there was her arrogance. She had already reached out to a real estate agent to have my house appraised. The realtor, concerned, forwarded their email conversation to my lawyer. Jessica wrote confidently about gaining full ownership and wanted to list it quickly. That was a final blow, written proof of her intentions. By the time we presented everything, her messages, the neighbor's account, the forensic evidence, to the judge, the outcome was clear. Her restraining order request was denied. Mine was granted. She was legally prohibited from coming near me or the property. The moment the order was served, everything changed. The woman who once smirked as I was handcuffed had been evicted from the very house she tried to steal. For months have passed since then. Today, it's over. The criminal case moved fast. The district attorney's office, backed by Harding's investigation, charged Jessica with filing a false police report, perjury, and attempted insurance fraud for falsely claiming damage to the house. When presented with the overwhelming evidence, photos, text testimony, emails, her lawyer had no choice. He urged her to take a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to the false report. In exchange, the other charges were dropped. No jail time, but 2 years of probation, a hefty fine, and mandatory therapy. And most importantly, a criminal record that will follow her forever. She set out to brand me as an abuser. Instead, she's been legally labeled a liar. The civil side was even more satisfying. Our engagement was broken beyond repair. The ring, a conditional gift tied to marriage, legally remained mine. I sold it and covered my legal fees. But we didn't stop there. We sued her for defamation, emotional distress, and malicious prosecution. Even the broken vase was included. Her lawyer resisted, but her guilty plea made a defense impossible. We reached a settlement. She handed over a significant part of her savings and signed a permanent non-disclosure agreement. She can never speak or write about me again. Not to friends, not online, not even in a private letter. If she ever does, the financial penalties will crush her. I have, in effect, erased myself from her life, completely and irrevocably. Last I heard, she's struggling. Her record makes employment difficult. Her social circle has abandoned her. She's isolated, disgraced, and broke. She tried to take everything from me and ended up with nothing. As for me, I'm recovering. The ordeal left its mark, but it also reignited something I thought was lost. My bond with my father has been rebuilt. Years of silence melted away during this crisis. We talk often now. Baseball games, dinner visits. I have my dad back. Jessica mistook my silence for weakness. She assumed I had no one, that I would crumble. But I wasn't weak, I was waiting. And I was never alone. I had family. I had truth. She told me to enjoy jail. But I'm the one who walked away free. Free from her, free from the lies, and free to start again, while she now lives in a prison of her own making.